Is today we're going to do something more around using AI and in particular SciSpace to shape research proposals and having a look at the audience. The good news is, regardless of whether you're an academic or a PhD or a postdoc, all of us at some point we need to write research proposals. So there's something in it for everyone. So what should you get out of this session? An introduction to how you would use AI in research proposals, insights from my experience as someone who submits research proposals and somebody who reviews them. Now, to be honest, the main research proposals I review are mainly at PhD level, but I have sat on some of the competitive grant panels and it's always good to know what panelists are looking for. Where I feel AI can add the most value as a researcher, once again, these are my thoughts and opinions. You can feel free to challenge them. Practical strategies using SciSpace agent, and hopefully we'll have time for an interactive discussion. All right. So before we dive into the use of SciSpace, I think, as I alluded to earlier, it's always good to talk about what do reviewers look for. And I always tell, whether it's my students or my colleagues, when you kind of have a feel or think like a reviewer, you write better research proposals. And from my expertise of looking at it, usually when I receive a research proposal, the first thing I'm looking for is a clear research question or a clear set of research questions. And as simple as that sounds, it sounds quite straightforward. Like, yeah, everybody should have a clear research question, but that isn't always the case. I think sometimes people they kind of have a feel of what they want to do, but the research question is not clear. I don't know what is it they're trying to do. What is it they're trying to get at? And you can have the best research methodologies in the world, the greatest research team, but if from the beginning it's not clear to me what you're trying to do, the research question is not clear, it's an upward battle from there. Strong rationale for the significance of the research. Now, the reason why I put this in bold is because this is very common. I think as researchers, we all have ideas that we're interested in, ideas that we're passionate about. However, when you're sitting on a panel, what you're thinking of is this value for money. If I'm going to fund this research or if I'm going to accept this research, what is the value beyond just, beyond the research? Is there any practical value? What's the significance of this? And I think a lot of researchers get caught in that trap because, they'll say, I have this really cool idea and I'm really passionate about it. For funders, it's like, so what? I mean, it's good to know you're passionate about your idea, but why should we fund this? Is it going to save us money? For example, is this going to save I'm a healthcare researcher, so is this going to save the healthcare system money? Is it going to have an actual impact in saving patient lives? So like, what's the output beyond just academics, which is publishing papers and so on? So I think a lot of people need to fail to make that clear. Feasible methodology, once again, and this will link in to what I'm going to talk about later on when we use AI. You need to make sure your methodology is feasible. So I'm less interested in very innovative techniques. I'm more interested in something that can be done. So I think sometimes people want to do something very niche and innovative, but it's not really feasible. They may not have the resources or the time. So always think of that when you're putting a research proposal. Is this actually feasible? Is this something I can manage to do? Trust me, reviewer panels are more interested in something that's doable rather than something that's top up really, really niche and really high end, but you probably cannot do it. And above all, it should be well written. So even if you have all of these three things above, nobody wants to read a proposal that's messy, there's a lot of grammatical errors. It's just not a good look. All right. So when people come to submit, as I said, the common pitfalls for me is lack of clarity on the aims or the research questions or the hypothesis. Easy as it sounds, that's something I see a lot. It's not quite clear to me why they're doing this research. Poor alignment with the funding or institution priorities. If it's interesting for you and you're passionate about it, doesn't necessarily mean it's interesting or aligned with what the funder wants. So always have a look at the funder. Is it within their scope? Is it the kind of research that they fund? Or if you're applying for a PhD, look at the supervisory team. Is this the kind of research that they do and they're interested to? So you need to make it aligned. And once again, weak justification of impact. So it's one thing to say that you're going to answer the research question, but then it's another to explain what is the importance of asking this research question? Why are we doing this research? What's the impact? So that's the kind of common pitfalls that I see. Now that you kind of got a brief for what funders look for, or what I look for at least as a funder. What are some of the coming pitfalls? With that in mind, you ask yourself the question, where can AI make the biggest difference? Now, for me, I think AI can do a really good job helping you formulate your research question. So if you kind of have an idea and you want to kind of formulate it, go a bit more specific, I think AI can do a good job. But once again, I've emphasized on the help. Like you need to kind of have an initial idea in mind. Don't go absolutely clueless and just throw it in prompts left and right. So it can really do a good job formulating the research question, which is the core of any research proposal. I think it can do a really good job summarizing the literature efficiently. So if you're going to write a research proposal, definitely you're going to have to need to do some literature searching. You're going to read some papers. You need to have an understanding of the topic in general, right? So I think AI can do a good job summarizing literature efficiently. It can help you identifying some of the gaps or trends in the research, so it can make your research question a bit more focused. And last but not least, when you're kind of clear on all of these things, I think it can assist with the proposal write-up. So once you've kind of ready to write your proposal and you start drafting it, I think it can help with assisting. Now, with that in mind, we also need to be aware of AI limitations. So I think it's important that we know what AI's strengths are, but what the limitations are. So one of it, I probably say in every talk that I give, it cannot replace human judgment or originality. So no matter what ideas the AI gives or what rephrasing it does, it cannot replace your judgment. So you're going to have to be the driver. You're the one who's going to come up with the idea. You're the one who's going to kind of have to lead on it. And we use AI to kind of tailor things. Never just go in blank and just take any idea you see that's given by AI. It doesn't know your context. It doesn't know what you're applying for, and so on. Now, this is very important. AI could give some really good research ideas, and I've actually tried it here and there, but it cannot assess feasibility. So this is where I actually see sometimes people who fully rely on AI for their research proposal get caught out. So they'll come up with a really good idea. Probably they just put it into AI, but it cannot be done for a research project. It's not feasible. For example, they'll tell you, we're going to do a randomized control trial and we're going to do a follow-up 5, 10 years. And it's like, this is a really good idea, but it's not feasible for your stage. And AI cannot really gauge that. So it'll give you ideas, but it's up to you as the researcher to make that judgment like, okay, this idea is not really feasible. So maybe I'm going to do something else and tailor it. So that's something to be aware of when using AI. Don't just handpick any idea that it gives you. And then, of course, I think this one we all know, there's this risk of generic phrasing if overused. So if you're going to use AI to write from scratch, to come up with the idea of scratch, it's just going to show. You know what I mean? It's very obvious. So I think people worry a lot about, oh, what if people use AI? I'm like, if they use AI wrongly, then wrongly is not a word, but if they use it incorrectly, then it's going to show. It's not good. So let's not be over reliant on it. But anyways, now that we're kind of aware of what reviewers look for, what some of the limitations in AI are, I'm going to probably do a bit of a demonstration of how we can use AI, specifically SciSpace, which is why we're here today, how we can use it to kind of help us build our research proposal. The first thing when you want to put together a research proposal is, as I mentioned, is you want to generate a research question. So I'm always, and I think there was a session before this, if you want to get good outputs from AI, you need to put specific inputs to get specific outputs. So you need to have, I usually say you should have a prompt template, some kind of list of prompts that have been tried and tested. I have my own one, and I'll share some of the things here. So you need to give it specific input, always have a list of prompts. So for example, and you can follow along for those of you who are watching. So one of the prompts that I would start with is list the potential research questions related to and whatever topic you have in mind. So I'm just going to take that. And for those who want to follow along, you can put whatever topic applies to you. I'm aware not everybody's is a healthcare researcher here. So we'll start with that. This is your AI agent. It looks daunting, the new one, but it's fairly easy to use. This is the main landing page. So I'm just going to put here, list the potential research questions related to, and I'm going to put something that's relevant to me. So for example, I'm interested in efficacy and safety of weight loss injectables. So I'm sure you've heard of Manjaro, and Ozempic and all these kind of weight loss medications. So that's something I'm kind of interested in. So I'm going to put it here, a very simple prompt, and we're going to just run it through the AI agent. Maybe specific, yeah, perfect. Or in weight management, maybe just to be a bit more specific. Perfect. Very simple prompt. We're going to run it through the AI agent, and we're going to let it do its thing. Now, while we're waiting for it, you could ask this. You could potentially say the same question. You can say, you can do the same thing with, let's just X this out for the bit. You can do the same thing for ChatGPT, right? You can use any generic LLM to do that. And I would answer you, yes, you can, but there are some differences we need to be aware of. So I'll open ChatGPT here, for example, and I'll just write the same prompt. Oh, sorry about that. Related to efficacy and safety of weight loss and injectables. Apologies, my spelling today has been a bit off. In weight management. So same prompt, we can use it in ChatGPT. Now we want to see the differences. So what's the differences going on here? While it's loading, it's writing this file, so it's analyzing it. Let's just give it some time to come together. So now it's doing this, writing the file, and we get it to now. What you see in ChatGPT, it's going to give you a list of questions, and some of these research questions are quite legit. So there's nothing wrong with them. But the issue is with ChatGPT. I mean, as a researcher, for me, I like to be able to track where is this information coming from. Where is the evidence coming from? Where did they find the resources? Can I duplicate the search, right? You don't really get that with ChatGPT. It's just going to come up with all these answers. It's going to say, here's a bunch of research questions and do as you please. So that's kind of doing it in that way. However, when we come to do it with SciSpace, for example, when I say list of potential research questions, is I can track where the searches are coming from. So this is one of the features that I really like. So it's telling me here that I'm searching this from SciSpace, Google Scholar, and PubMed. So for example, if I wanted to replicate the search term, I would just press here, and I would probably copy this, the exact search they use for PubMed, and then I can go to PubMed on advanced search, and then I can input the exact search that they did, and I can see here and track it. So this for me as a researcher is really important. So I can also even edit it if I want. So I can kind of see that this is based on a research-based answer, and I can see what they use. Similar concept for Google Scholar. If you click on Google Scholar, it will tell you the exact search terms that it used, and I can easily reproduce that search, and then I can bring it to Google Scholar, put the search terms here, see exactly. So it's traceable, it's transparency. And I think that's very key for when you're doing research. You want to make sure that the search strategy is transparent. Anyways, so what it's done is it told me that I've come up with all of these. I've searched, I got 100 papers, 20 from Google Scholar, so on. Then it's going to do this re-rank process, and I'll get into that later on. It's going to give you a list here. So similar to that, it's going to say, if you're interested in weight loss injectable, you can look at it from a safety perspective, and it's giving me some ideas here around the studies. You can do a follow-up study. You can look at pancreatic and biliary and so on. You can look at it from an effectiveness. So there's more than one weight loss drug. You can compare them. And it's answers that are built on research. So it's telling me where it came up with this research idea. You can link the papers back to them. So I don't get these features when I use a generic LLM. It's also giving me understudied populations, which I think is quite cool. That's something I'm interested in, and so on. So I'm going to now need to kind of pick an area, right, to dial down on my research question. Now, if for whatever reason you're happy with one of the questions that ChatGPT came up with, you can just copy and then paste it here. And then it will kind of do that same search, but you'll get the evidence-based search. It'll tell you which search terms it used and so on. But for the interest of time, let's say I'm interested in, for me as a researcher, for example, I'm interested in understudied populations. I think that I'm interested in older adults, and they're the people who are usually at more risk when they use medications. So let's just say I've come up with the idea that, okay, we're going to look at safety and efficacy of weight loss injectables in older adults, because based on this, it says that it's an understudied population. All right. Now, the question that you tell yourself is, am I ready to go now? Am I ready to write my research proposal? And the answer is no. This is just the starting point. So we've just used the first prompt just to kind of get a feel broadly about what research questions I can use. Now I found the research question that I'm interested in, which is use of these weight loss injectables in a particular population. Now the next step is I need to kind of do a bit more literature for this research question. So that's the next stage. We're going to do a bit of a literature review, right? Now I'm going to show you a bit of how I can use SciSpace to find key papers based on my research question. An example prompt, and for those who are following us that you can use is, can you scope the existing literature on? And I'm going to put my research question, which is weight loss injectables in older patients, older adults. And the reason why I use specific terminology scope, because I'm just scoping the literature. I'm not looking for a systematic search here. I'm just seeing what's out there. So we're going to do that right now. I'm going to copy this prompt. Hopefully this time it should be a bit more smoother. We'll go back to the official one we put. So we're going to say, okay, can you scope the existing literature on safety and efficacy on my more refined question of weight loss injectables in elderly? My definition of elderly, or the standard definition of elderly, is usually 65 years old and above. Yeah, all right. Or I'll say, sorry, 65 years old and above for more. So now I'm asking it, I've got, can you scope the existing literature? And we're going to let the agent run again. Once again, we're just using the agent here. We're not going into any of the other features. So we'll let it do its thing again. So it's going to conduct a comprehensive literature search. It might take a bit of time, but I think the time is worth it for what you get. So it's going to begin with running its deep search. We'll give it a couple of minutes to get running, or 1 minute. I'll get a drink of water while we're waiting. So once again, as I alluded to earlier, the good thing about the SciSpace agent now is that it tells you exactly what it's doing. So it's kind of feeding you in real time. It's telling you, let me begin with the SciSpace deep search, and it's telling you what it's doing. It's asking this question. There's a bit of an update. So it found 135 relevant papers. And now it's going to broaden the search. I think this is a really nice feature. So it's telling you kind of in real time what it's going to do. It's going to broaden the search to include comparative studies. So there's like this nice ongoing dialogue. It's telling you what it could do, so you can always challenge it. You can frame it in a certain way. But I'm just going to let the agent do its thing over here while we're waiting for it. And then if for the interest of time, it takes a bit of time, we'll probably I'll probably do a bit of cheating and just go back to the history because I ran these a bit earlier. But anyways, so searching the SciSpace here. Let the agent run. Should take 1 or 2 minutes. So I think it's worth it for it to do an in-depth search. I think waiting a couple of minutes is definitely worth the hassle on our end. But we can, while we wait for it, because I did run this search earlier on, I can just hover over to one of the searches that I ran earlier on. I think it was this one, if I'm not mistaken. So I did run this search earlier today, prior to the session, and I'll probably just do that for the interest of time. So same prompt as you're aware. So I told it, can you now scope the existing literature? So what it would do is after it does its thing, it would do a SciSpace search, once again, Google Scholar, PubMed, and so on. But what I really like is after it does all of that stuff, it comes up with a nice summary. And this is a really good feature that I think is SciSpace has done well. So what it does is after it's run all of those searches, it's going to do a combine and re-ranking process. So what this means is it's going to find, for example, the papers that it thinks are relevant to my research question, which is safety and efficacy of weight loss injectables in elderly patients. This is a really nice feature. So it's given us here that this is the first paper. and it's giving you a relevant score of 100 and highly relevant. Now, obviously, we don't have to take these scores at face value, but it gives you also the reasoning. So why does it think this is highly relevant to my research question? Because it uses tirzepatide, which is one of the weight loss injectables, to assess weight loss and glycemic controls in adults over 65 with a BMI. So it's giving me the reason as to why it has ranked this as a high relevant paper to my research question. And then it gives you a nice little abstract. Once again, it does this for all of the papers. You can go down, you've got the highly relevant. So you don't need to use the rankings as, the score, but I think using the tag and the reasoning is quite cool. And then obviously, if you're not happy with something, for example, if you say, I don't know, okay, this paper is not so relevant, you can always just delete it. If you click on this button and then it'll rearrange the table once again. So there's always that kind of human judgment. I would overlook all of them. Obviously, I'm not going to do that for the interest of time now, but what I would do is I'll go over them one by one, have a look at the reasoning. Why is it highly relevant? Go over the abstract and so on. I added the column of research gap and future research. So, and then I'll make a judgment call. Now, once again, what have I done here? Apologies for that. Once again, one of the good features is that we can always do, for example, weight loss that lasts. Apologies, I've clicked the wrong button. Oh, removed one paper. So let me just go up. We'll get that reasoning thing back and going. There we go. We're back. So sometimes I have fat fingers syndrome where I just bash random buttons. But anyways, one of the good things that I like about it as well is you can bookmark the papers that you think are relevant. So what I would do, for example, by clicking on this button, I can bookmark it. So I've already done a folder where I called it weight loss for older people, and I want to put it here. Okay. If I have this paper, I think it's also quite relevant. I'll do the same and so on. So every paper that I think is quite interesting, I can always just say, okay, let me add it to my library. So everything is in the same place. I don't have to, I can find it later on. And there we go. Just with that click of a button, I've kind of got all of my papers. All right. So through this quick search, I'm able to build a nice library of potential papers that are relevant for my research question. And on that, I can start building my literature review. I can have a feel for what's out there in the space. So this is a really nice feature, the whole relevance and priority scoring. But beyond that, it will also, if you go down a bit more, it'll give you a nice little overview of what it's done. So it'll tell you, okay, this is the overview of the evidence. When it's the kind of study types that are done in this space. So a lot of them are randomized clinical trials, post hoc, and it gives you the references to these studies, which is super cool. Key medications that are studied. So in this space, what are the medications that research is being done on? And SEMA and liraglutide, which from about my background, it makes sense because these are the two older ones. Tirzepatide is the newer one. So anyway, so it tells you kind of like nice little things to be aware of, number and age ranges. So what are the sample sizes that are being studied, notable data, and so on. Findings relevant to efficacy. So what are the findings saying? Now, this is kind of giving you a good kind of overview knowledge on what's out there, what do the findings say, and then for you to verify and cross-check, it gives you the paper in which this is coming from, which is really nice. Safety profile, special considerations. Now, once again, here it'll give you an indication at what some of the research gaps are. These are just ideas that you can use. Very old adults, long-term safety, and so on. And all the references are there. So this is kind of one of the key benefits that I think of using an agent like SciSpace. So you can use these prompts, for example, in generic LLMs. You will get outputs, but you're not going to be able to trace where the information is coming from. So ideally, what you would do is you would scavenge as much papers as you can from that table that I showed you earlier. I would scavenge as much paper and I'll put them all in my library, because when I have the papers in my library, within a click of a button, I can have access to that paper. I can chat with it using the SciSpace feature with some prompts. So for example, if you don't have prompts, there are a list of prompts. Can you provide me with the results of the paper? And it's going to give me kind of some of the results of the paper, what are the key results. And then also if you click on it, it tells you, well, obviously it's going to be the source because that's the paper. So you can have a nice chat with it and it can summarize you. So this is a really nice way to be able to scope a lot of literature when you're writing a research proposal, to have a good idea of the field, um, having them all in your library, having them saved. The PDF, if you have, for example, you can link your organization to it. So I'm at the University of Manchester. I've already linked my institution to it. So if I click on PDF, it will redirect me to my institution library. So you can do that at the start for those of you that have institutional access. We're just going to log in here. And there we go. It's just going to verify that I am human. And there you go. So you have access to everything in one place. Now, as I said, this is really cool. You can have everything in one place. You can chat with these papers. You can dig out what the key bits and bobs are. So it's really good to do a nice little overview of the literature. All right. So hovering back over to the PowerPoint presentation, if I can manage to find it. So as I said, I think this is where one of the key things you can use AI is to find key papers based on the research question. Using this prompt, I really like the relevance score and reasoning. I think that's a nice feature that can kind of help you, that can give you a feel for which papers rather than just spitting a lot of papers. And then there's that little summary table column, which you can add the research gap or future research. So at this stage, we've kind of formulated the research question. You would have used it to have summarized literature efficiently. Now, obviously, for the interest of time, and this is a 1 hour workshop, so I just had to kind of do it quickly. But, when you're actually using SciSpace, this is going to take some time. You're going to summarize the papers, have your own table. You're going to go over them a bit more thoroughly than I did. We identified some potential gaps. So if you saw in the summary that SciSpace gave us, it gave us some potential gaps or trends in research. Now, let's say I've had enough information to write my research proposal. I'm going to go and formulate my research proposal. The next thing is, how can we use it to assist with our proposal write-up? So stage 3 is the proposal outline. So once you're clear on your research question, you've done a nice little, you've done a good overview of the literature, and you're kind of clear on it. You want to write your research proposal. Now, I'm a big believer of having a rough draft ready. So this is where maybe other creators hold different opinions. They say you can go, I think, have a rough draft ready, go old school in the beginning, whip out your Microsoft Word or whatever, write kind of what the rationale is, what you're kind of aiming to do. And then I would rather you feed it into the system. So, and I'm going to show you in a bit, you can use SciSpace Agent to propose an outline. That is a feature for those of you that prefer that. So I'll show you what I'm going to do. So I prefer to have a rough draft ready and then provide it with a prompt. So we'll just do a bit of a demonstration on that. So let's go back to the SciSpace home. Okay. So if we go back here, there is the SciSpace AI writer. And now you can choose a template, a predefined template. So I can say, for example, choose a template, research proposal is written here, start writing. And you can say, I'm doing a research proposal on efficacy and safety. So give it the prompt and safety of weight loss injectables. In elderly adults. So we can do that, give it the prompt, and then it can kind of start with giving us an outline. So it's telling us, okay, this is how it's going to outline it. Obviously, you're going to have an introduction, a background, a significance. Now, look, it can suggest things for you. So now that it kind of knows what you're trying to write about, SciSpace can suggest. I personally prefer to have a rough draft because my worry is that if you go through this, there is a danger that you become over-reliant on the AI. You can just say, oh, this sentence sounds cool. I'll accept that. And then you can go, it'll suggest you something else, and then you can keep doing it. Oh, I'll accept that. So there is a bit of a danger. I think us humans, we're kind of the shortcut, easy way out is always tempting. So that's one way of doing it. What I prefer to do is I'm a bit old school, so I say I would go to the home. I would already write something. So here is and this is an actual research project that me and my colleague are working on. It's still in this. Bear with me for a second. So this is a project proposal. If it shows on the screen, it's not the same topic, by the way. I didn't have time, but we're looking at cardiovascular risk assessment tools. So my colleague and I, we kind of had a bit of an idea. We wrote a bit of a rationale. We kind of wrote what we're thinking of doing, but it's still not research proposal material. There's not like a solid aims, objectives section, and so on. But it's kind of well thought out. So we got a good starting point, and we have some references and so on. So what I will do is I have my file. I don't need to save that for now. I will go in here and I'll just kind of click on this plus button and I'll upload my file. Go on the desktop, project proposal. There we go. And then I'll use the prompt that I said in the PowerPoint, which is to just a clear outline aim for this proposal using these ones. And you can adjust this. You can adjust this prompt based on what the funding proposal looks like, but let's just say background, aims, objectives, methodologies. So I've given SciSpace kind of what my project is about, what I'm thinking of doing, but once again, the input has come from me. I have already drafted this. Now I just need to use SciSpace to help me out, just to kind of polish it and refine it. So here it says, I'll create you a clear outline from your proposal. Let me read the document to understand. Okay, we'll give it a minute to do so. Hopefully I'll have better luck this time with the technology. So it's running the command now. So it's given this one page kind of summary, which I gave it, of what I'm thinking of doing. Once again, this is different to the demonstrations that I was showing you. This is a slightly different project. It's not looking at weight loss, but I'm just mainly here showing you the techniques. So anyway, it's reading the file and it's telling me what it's doing. Now it's writing the file, and we're gonna have a look at what it comes with. I'll just get a breather while we're waiting for this. All right, so probably if it's gonna take a bit of time, I might just go to what we've already done earlier on. So this might take an extra minute or so, but for the interest of time, so we don't have kind of this awkward silence. Oh, it wrote file. There we go. Never mind. So it's kind of written the file for me, given what I've given it. So we're gonna look at what it's done. I'm always interested in opening the file. So it kind of wrote the proposal for me here, or helped me. So it's telling me that this was the project that I'm giving it. So this is what I'm thinking of doing. So it's giving me a nice background. It's like in the background section, you can write about the global burden of cardiovascular disease. And it's giving me ideas. So this is a good starting place for my project proposal. I can talk about how cardiovascular disease is the leading cause of mortality. And then it's giving me ideas here of all the current risk prediction models, their strengths and limitations. I think this is quite good that it's actually a good way of phrasing it. So it's telling me all the different risk scores out there, what you might want to do in your next step. But as you can see here, it's giving me bullet points of what I should write about. So I'm not fully reliant on it. I'm just taking ideas. And then it's telling you what to consider when you're using these risk tools in diabetes and so on. So I won't bore you with the detail. Then it's come up with a name. Once again, and based on the input I give it, it's kind of tried to phrase it in an aim. But I would double check that to enhance the clinical sensitivity and durability of the score 2 for UK, which is actually pretty much what we're trying to do, thereby improving risk stratification and so on. And then it's also, so see how it took that kind of document, which I gave it, and it's putting it more into a proposal form. It's giving me some objectives, which once again, I think you should double check, but they're quite close to what I have in mind. To validate the score 2, that's what we want to do. And then we want to do an enhanced model incorporate the NAT NT-proBNP. So this is it's giving us it's how you can write it in a proposal format. Now, once again, I don't have to take everything it does at face value. So for example, Do I want all of these secondary objectives? Um, Objective 5, 6, 7? Probably not. I probably want my main three objectives. I'm not thinking of these sort of things. Now, methodology. Remember what I alluded to you earlier in the presentation. It's gonna give a study design. It's gonna give us ideas. It's gonna say you can do a prospective cohort study, retrospective analysis. It's giving me the setting. Obviously, we're UK based. Now, this is where you need to use your intellect, right? Because it's saying duration, specify follow-up period. Example, 10 years. Obviously, we're not going to use that. I mean, the amount of resources, time, and money we would need to do a study and follow up after 10 years, that's way beyond us. So it gives you ideas, but don't take everything at face value. And it's also telling me what I need to consider for my proposal. Um, the adult age, they have to be UK residents, um, free from known cardiovascular events, and so on. So it's kind of giving me, built on what I gave it, and it's giving me ideas to go on. And I would obviously double check all of these ideas. Now, I know this is not probably the answer that many want to hear. People would have wanted me to say, okay, you can give in 2, 3 buttons and take it. But as I said, I prefer to work with the AI, and not like over rely on it. I prefer to input my ideas. I prefer to take some suggestions and then write it from scratch. But anyways, I think it's really nice. Based on that one-page document, it's also giving me expected outcomes, things that I can think about. And I would have to read them carefully and give them some thought. But that's really good. I think that's a really nice way of putting things forward. So it's given us a bit of a nice little outline that we can use. So I'll just hover over back to the PowerPoint presentation. So I think I've showed you kind of nicely here how we could have used SciSpace, how we got from having a general idea of what we want to do in terms of a research question, how we can use it, we use the right prompts to go from general research question to a more focused research question using SciSpace features, and then how we can use the AI agent to go from to use our research question to do a nice literature scoping review of the literature, and then we can gather all of the papers that we want, bookmark them, use the SciSpace to chat with the PDFs and so on. And then last but not least, once we have a clear kind of research question and we've done the literature, how we can probably input it to put the proposal outline. Now, once again, this will take more, when you're actually doing it, this will take a couple of weeks. Good research proposals usually take months, but this was just kind of like a whistle-stop tour on how I would approach it from start to finish, or where I think AI can provide the most benefit. So before we move on to the Q&A session, what are some of the quick tips for effective AI use? Be very specific with the prompts, as I alluded to earlier. If you don't know what you're doing or you're just giving very vague commands, then not even SciSpace can help you. It's not going to give you the outputs. Verify all factual outputs. So whatever the agent gives you, just make sure that you verify it. Even when it gives you the references, it's a good idea to copy paste these references and then look them up on the off chance that maybe one of the references there might be incorrections and whatnot. So it's your duty as a reviewer to verify everything the AI does. As I tried to show you today, use AI to complement, not replace expertise. So I think it's fair to say that I did use the AI today to complement my expertise, but I didn't fully rely on it. I didn't tell it. I just gave it some commands. It helped me with some ideas, but I wasn't fully reliant on it. And very important when writing a proposal is always assess the feasibility and context of the recommendations that it gives you. So always ask yourself, is this feasible, and so on. I think also a good example, I see this with happening a lot with the PhD proposals I get. For instance, I remember someone was talking about independent prescribing in a Middle Eastern country. I'm not going to throw them under the bus. And you can tell it was fully reliant on AI. And I said, you don't even have this in the Middle East. So how are you proposing something? So remember what I said. That kind of prospect of how doable that research is, AI will give you ideas, but you need to do your homework. So I think that sums up my presentation.